Hello, hello, hello. Today I'm sharing a wonderful conversation I had with Semeer Bendre. We talked about being at the right place at the right time, about imposter syndrome versus being a big agile name, and being genuinely curious and overcoming challenge. I'm Yves Hanold from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello, hello everyone, and hello. With me, I have Semeer Bendre. Was that how to pronounce it, Semeer?
That is correct. That is correct.
So thank you for being here, and let's show also, and then I should be very, oops, what I did I do? I should be very carefully showing where we are, and that's is where I am in Ghent, Belgium, and you are somewhere near Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
That
And
is correct.
Google is taking us right there, and this is on near Johns Creek. Well, it's probably not the exact location, but the goal is, of course, not to help stalkers, but just to give a little bit an idea on where you are, and I'll bring you back on screen. And for me, on my side, it's 15 after 8 o'clock in the evening. What time is it on your side?
It's 15 after 2 p.m.
After 2 p.m. So that's
Six
it's
hours.
not just lots of miles away, but it's also a lot of hours away and a lot of distance. And we're recording it. I just realized by looking at the clock, we're recording it on the 11th of September, which is a day that has a lot of memories for a lot of people. And I do remember watching also that same day on my evening about what happened there so many years ago.
That is correct. It's one of
So,
the very important days in the human history. Yes.
exactly. And so for Samir, for the people that don't know you, tell us a little bit on who are you? What do you want people to know?
Again, from name perspective, I'm Semeer Bendre. I am in Johns Creek, and I've basically been in IT for nearly 2.5 decades, coming around 25-ish years. Um, I've been in IT all of my life, professionally. Rose from developer to business analyst, project manager, and somewhere in that journey, actually stumbled upon in the agile world and started doing agile consulting, learning and implementing it. And that's the professional side of me. And apart from basically just doing that part, I spent a lot of time early in my probably last decade or so in professional volunteering, and I have been known as one of the contributors in the community locally and globally about that part. So that's the professional side, and on the regularly personal side, just somebody who chills, loves to spend time with the family, and um, live around.
Thank you for sharing that already. I think I like it that you, when you present yourself, that you also take a little time. Hello, it's evening. Take a little time to talk about the personal part, because indeed we are not. Well, it's always a mix for me. People are not just the professional side. People are not just the personal side. It's always both of
Absolutely.
it, I would say. I think for most of us, um, yeah, we at work we also bring our personalities, our person who we are, and same time at home we also bring stuff that we learn from work and everything. So I think there's always a little bit.
That is correct because people keep saying that the work-life balance, and there are moments when work spills into personal life, and then there are moments when you need to let the personal life be the priority. So We need to
Yeah,
I'm not sure that there is a work-life balance kind of a thing, but we need to make do with things.
yeah, I liked. I'm not sure. I think it might be Jürgen Uplow who talked first about the fusion. At least it's something I've been talking about for a long time, work-life fusion, because I like to mix little things, and these things influence each other. But like you say, at some points, if there is really a problem in a personal life, then it just takes over because that is the biggest priority. I would definitely say. It's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing a lot of these things recording, because it makes it for me. It was like it gave me the opportunity to still connect with the agile community without having to leave my house, and that's something I've learned after the whole lockdown situation. That I thought, okay, how do I do it? I'm not sure if I'm ready to go back to all these conferences, but at the same time, I miss my friends, and how do I connect and make new friends? And that's a little bit how things got rolling.
That makes sense. That absolutely makes sense.
And yeah, it's like we said in the pre-talk. Yes, it takes a lot of time for me, but at the same time, tonight, after this conversation is over, I go back to my family, and depending, this is probably at this moment people will still be awake. But I've did recordings after midnight, and then I'm still in my own bed afterwards, even if it takes. And that's a
Wow.
little bit how work-life integration works. Because if we go to a conference, then most of the well, depending on how long the conference is, but if it's a little bit on another part of the world, it takes a day or 2 days more than the conference to be away from the family, which is also a big investment. So we already jumped in some of these discussions. Let's directly jump into that first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Great question, Eve. And again, about that, simple thing is I'm kind of a hands-on person.
Mm.
I would say that for Sameer, I like to generally start on the ground and make sure any situation that I'm basically put into. Maybe it's something related to family, it's a big get together in the family, or in the volunteering world or professional. Um, Whenever we get into stuff, I see that as some things to be done, because there are things where there are people at the ground level, there are people who are managing, and then there are people who are probably call them as executive sponsor and stuff. So for me, I call it, if you've heard the walk the Gemba kind of a thing, I like to be first on the ground, get to know what the situation I'm getting into, and that kind of a guy. So I like to get my hands dirty. And anytime there is, I'm in a setting, um, that's where people are like, okay, we probably need to do this thing. We are meeting in a gathering or even in a meetup, and there are opportunities like, hey, we probably need help with this. So I'm the kind of the guy who raises my hand first. Right? What is it that I can do here?
Mm.
So I basically like to be hands-on community guy, and that's been basically the my way of life mostly. Being a constant learner, implementing what I've learned in different situations, and you know, taking that knowledge wherever grassroots, observing people how they are doing stuff, how and if somebody's getting better at stuff, and then making use of it. And then once you know and master something, um, you actually I like to start sharing that knowledge. That hey, you know what? There's a better way of doing things.
Mm. I like that. And when you when that second part of the question is, how did that influence you in who you are? Could you say some more? Because I think if you are the first to take up your hand, that definitely might have an impact on you, right?
Exactly, yeah. So um, things like what it helps me influence is I get uncomfortable pretty quickly in situations like, okay, um, maybe sometimes I know what's happening, how things are working or not. um, it, I like to basically standardize stuff, put together processes and new things. Uh, and I always ask the question: Is there a better way of doing things? So how has it has influenced me is whenever I get into any situation, there are a lot of people of the mindset that, hey, um, don't um, don't fix what's not broken. I'm not of that way. I want to understand, is there a better way to do anything? And that way I
Mm.
can, not only for my personal growth, but from a group thinking perspective, I can challenge people that, hey, um, great, this is working fine, but is there a different way to do things? I think it came back to like from my childhood. Like I would always be curious of how things are working. Be it a toy, be it an engineering toy, something like I would play with it. That's cool. I'm happy with it. But how does this work, and why does this work? So many times I would just open things up, not necessarily put things back together. But that's where I would
Mm.
be curious about how does this work. Okay, now I know the situation. I know how it worked. What is it that we can do next time better to probably make it efficient and effective, or something like that? You call me
Wow. And
lazy, yeah, yeah. You can call me lazy. Sometimes I'm always like, you probably in engineering heard the thing that I used to back in the day. I used to use this line that I'm like current, where I'm actually looking for the least resistance path.
I think it was Bill Gates that said, "I'm looking for the developers that are in the smart version of lazy," and he meant actually what you're talking about. Indeed, not just lazy as doing nothing, but lazy as doing what is the way the yeah the way with the least effort to get the results and to
Exactly.
find better ways to optimize it. But at the same time, I would call you not lazy in the sense that when you say uh, because you said earlier on, some people say that let's not change what is working. If you would, yeah, if you would be really lazy, you would say, okay, let's not even look at that because I don't want to think about that. Where if you're looking at better ways, one way it's lazy because you want maybe to look for less work, but on the other way, you need to think to rethink the way you're working. So I think it's a nice mix on these things.
Yeah,
I can definitely see how that can impact you, um, and how it, yeah, because well, and especially if I link it to the very first sentence that you said it to, I'm the first to put up my hand to say I can help. That's definitely not lazy. The pure lazy person would say, okay, I'll wait until nobody else. If there's nobody, maybe then I'll answer, but only if really nobody else is there. So yeah, I wouldn't call that lazy in that sense.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. That's why I said curious, and that's exactly how professionally, since we are talking about who is agile. I think I was at the right time at the right place because I was in a big, large transformation that was going around in circa 2004. And this same attitude, okay, what is being curious about what is happening here and trying to learn about that was basically my foray that this seems interesting. I would see people doing the stand-ups, and then there was, of course, a whole huge, you need to restructure how people are going to sit and this and that. I'm like, okay, this is making sense. I'm I actually saw the cultural shift that was happening at
mm,
this place. Like I was in a place professionally as a consultant where people used to sit in cubicles. So if I had to talk to a colleague, I would have to go to their cubicle and knock and just do that kind of environment. And when we moved out of that environment into a collaborative workspace, I have seen grown-ups cry while making the move. Like, this is my 20 years worth of place, my work stuff. So I don't know if the new generation thinks about anything like this, but um, I was there. I've experienced all of this stuff, and that helps you grow as a person. Understand cultural differences, um, talk to people, that kind of stuff. So that has influenced me. Like, okay, whatever we're doing is probably not easy, but it definitely makes you stop and think.
Mm. Thanks for sharing, because indeed that's you. It's interesting you talk about being the right person at the right time. I think many of us are, but I think it's, yeah, for me it's also deeper. I mean, there's many things that happen in everybody's life, and being the right person at the right time also means paying attention when something's happening that could influence you. And some people might just say, okay, this is wrong moment for me and I don't pay attention, and that might be right, because whatever happens in their life. And then I think there's many things happening in everybody's life, and you pick up one of the things at some point, and then all of a sudden there is a new career, or there's a new way of life, and there's new things there. So
You are
it's
absolutely right. You're absolutely right, because I could have simply chosen to ignore, just do my regular job and do that part. But that's where I got curious, started following people, investing in learning stuff. That's how, through either Twitter or stuff, I stumbled upon the Agile community.
mm, so that's, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Let's move to that second question, that if you had not been doing what you've been doing now, what could have become of you? Do you have any idea?
Yeah. Again, thought a lot about your interesting question over here. Um, as I said, since a kid, I've always had different kind of inclinations, and one of those things that was pretty clear to me during my high school days was I'm not going to be a doctor kind of a guy. So that cutting and
Mm,
all that part. So, whatever, biology and all that stuff and things, that wasn't the thing that I was going to go to. So electronics was something that I was very good at, and of course started my what do you call, journey in learning a little bit of guitar and that kind of thing. So music. So at a point in time, I actually had contemplated um, maybe a fusion of either electronics and or music, something like sound engineering and things like that, or
wow,
simply going into actual pure electronics kind of large scale integration design, you call it, the chip design. I don't know. So that was one of the what you call it, things, disciplines in engineering I was actually trying to get my eye on, but I couldn't get that, so I went into computer technology.
yeah, it's an interesting multitude of things, I would say. I mean, sound engineer, depending on how you look at it, looking at sounds, looking at, yeah, some of the other things you just talked about. It's so how did that path happen? How did you move into then IT? Is there anything? Yeah, is there a story behind that?
It's pretty simple one. Like, as in India, the what you call competition gets stiffer. So there is like a percentage basis on which you generally get an admission to either a college and what you call a branch, as we call it, like a specialization. I was pretty confident, knowing the past results, that I would get into the electronics product design piece that I would get into. But of course, things had surprised me. So when my 12th grade results came out, that seat got filled in pretty quiet, fast, pretty fast. And if I even had to think of getting into that, my father would have had to pay a lot of money, for that part. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So then, obviously, I had a good uncle in the engineering discipline. My and I we spoke with him, sat down with him, and he was like, computer technology is a good field that's kind of up and coming. It's not completely software, but it's hardware and software. So basically, he guided me. He was one of the guys who actually started basically the curiosity for us in electronics. So he's my as I said, uncle, like my mom's sister's husband, and he's the one who would show us circuitry and stuff, and he would talk, electronics, and he had created that part. So we basically took his guidance, and then I got an admission in computer technology.
It's really nice, and it shows how much family and people around us have an influence on who we have and who we are and what we end up with. We don't always realize it, and we don't always tell them, I would say, but it's really has an impact on where we end up with. So thanks for sharing. That's, yeah, it's an important thing to share and also to think about when yeah, how could we be an example for the people around us. It really helps. I remember when I was back in high school, there was yeah, people visiting the school that could give you an example of possible jobs, and I wasn't really interested in that moment, but I think it was more because I saw already other influences around me. But I can imagine if you don't have these kind of influences, that these kind of things can really make an impact. Just
Yep.
hearing people talk about some of that. So thanks for sharing that. I want to move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest challenge, at least the biggest challenge that you want to put out on the internet, and why is that?
I think my biggest challenge is um, the imposter syndrome, um, and every time basically, and the reason being basically I know I have a lot of things that I know, right? Over the 25 years of IT career or things like that, um, I've learned a lot, implemented a lot of things, um, gained a lot of knowledge, followed a lot of thought leaders, learned from them, and as I said, I was a hands-on guy, so I have always utilized that knowledge that I have learned and generally try to find and implement it. But every time I have a general new interaction, um, and I've basically come up with a crowd that doesn't know me, I kind of get not sure cold feet, but I'm like, okay, how's this gonna work? Because when I work with those people and try to understand their problem, immediately things go start going in my mind like, hey, okay, if we do this, I know this, and if I do this, and this, I can probably help solve their problem. So we ju- again, there are two outcomes, right? So when you start sharing your ideas or suggestions to people, either people take it or they think you're full of air, or they come up with they have come to the table with their personal agenda. So for wherever people generally take my ideas, it's a smooth transition. Okay, we work collaboratively, we work like that. But mm, there have been often not people who don't know me or who don't know what I can do because I don't know, I'm famous, or whatever that. But they will create a huge resistance. And what that does for me is it challenges me to think my approach. One is, am I doing things right? What is it that I might be doing wrong? And of course, I've gotten wiser a little over the years. Earlier, I used to like burn bridges pretty quickly. That hey, I can see this. This is how it should be done. You don't know. I can tell you how this, and these are the benefits probably, but they won't take for it. Like simple thing is like moving from requirements document to user stories, things like that. But over the years, all these challenging situations have forced me to learn a little more, not only about the situation, not only about the people, but about me, myself. And that basically has been the best part. Like, I know they don't care about, my work capabilities and stuff like that, but this thing keeps me on my toes. So
Mm.
when people don't know you, you can, in the first or one or two meetings, sense what's happening. And when there are challenges, that actually helps me. Okay, maybe I need to go learn about that. And that's how I've constantly evolved, learning different, call it hard skills, soft skills, and other things. And it keeps me on my toes.
It's interesting that you say, and I find, well, I think first of all, many of us we have imposter syndrome. I think it's tempting to say I've beaten it, but every time I start something new or I try something that is, yeah, that at that moment, then you recognize it again, and especially when there is pushback from people that think you cannot do it, it's like, yeah, there still is that little voice inside my head and inside, I think, many people head that says, what if that person is right? Am I really not capable? And I like it how you turn it around. I did notice you say something about, yeah, I'm not famous or something. But one of the things I know is that, well, first of all, interviewing here a few really famous people that some have said on camera, some have said off camera, that they still also have some kind of imposter syndrome. For example, some of the really big names that I've interviewed were very, very nervous up front for doing such an interview. So yeah, I've seen some of that stuff going on. So I can definitely say it's not because people are more or less famous that they have less or more imposter syndrome. Um, it's even the big people, sometimes, or what we call big names, sometimes feel like, yeah, but maybe I was lucky and they didn't see right away that I might still not know it or whatever. So it's really interesting to see sometimes people that you and me might consider big names in whatever industry that still are that still have that same kind of idea that maybe tomorrow it's all over and
Well,
it's,
that is
it's
interesting to hear. Yeah, and that again, as I said, like one, it's interesting to know that big names have that kind of too. And um, you know, if we don't have support from family, you can't grow. And this is where my wife has been my rock behind me. She's, if it's a hard skill or a new skill that we both basically spend time into learning new things. She has crafted her career. I keep doing that, and then comes the, we talk out through the situations. Like, hey, I feel like this, and we both generally, actually, even in local Atlanta community, we have given presentations and stuff together. So again, it's not about going on stage or something like that. It's just simply every new, call it engagement or project or so, any new interaction that's going to come up. I'm like, okay, how's this gonna go? How's this gonna go? And you have to feel the situation, and then evaluate all your experiences and measure and then respond.
mm, yeah, I think recognize, and like I said, there's many people. um Okay, so yeah, it's definitely something that is, it's really nice to share and to share openly. And of course, imposter syndrome is also making it sometimes hard to share stuff. But like, yeah, okay, yeah, so, yeah. I think many people also recognize that part, but I think this is why it is so important to keep sharing it, especially as coaches, especially if we are parents or with friends, to keep talking about it. Of course, preferable with people we share that won't abuse that information or that we feel safe. But if we already start doing that with these kind of people, a lot of people around us might feel like, oh, I'm actually not alone. Oh, this person has the same kind of thing.
Exactly.
And to me, it's also one of these side effects that I didn't see coming when I did a project like this, working together. And even if this is not really working together with people, it's still collaborating or making an interview. But then I see a different side from people all around the world, and I see, and sometimes it's big ego reaction that I didn't see. Sometimes it's imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's all kind of different ways. But you see people in a different kind of environment than you would see them if you would see them on stage or when you
Sage,
work
yeah.
with. And yeah, it's wonderful, and this is for me also a reason why yeah, like you said, these are very personal questions that sometimes can go very deep, and for many people, that's the luck I've had. People take the time to really do the soul searching and think about what is it that makes that or that, and then we both, yeah, realize in such conversations that okay, there is uh, another part of this or that that more people have. And, yeah. And so thanks for sharing that. I think it's important to do that.
Okay. I'm
I
just
want
gonna stand also. Yeah.
what's I have at the
Okay.
same time.
Okay.
I want to move to that next question, and that is, what drives you? What is for you something? Because I already feel that passion. I already feel some of that. Do you know what drives you, or even more important, do you know where that drive is coming?
I think is the drive or is all about my curiosity. So if I'm generally curious about something, or if I have to say, if I can put a value that it is important for me, that drives me. And I'll give an example of both of that stuff. So um, there was in the personal life a point with I wasn't a good swimmer. I had multiple accidents in water um, where I dislocated my shoulder. So I actually, while learning swimming, so um, I I came over that fear for a particular important thing, just to make sure I could learn scuba diving and be my wife's partner.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
that
just
takes a lot of dedication, because if you do that just to be with a person and to help a person, that sounds really like
yeah,
wow.
that it was an interesting incident, but again, the outcome of that was like
And was that your
unexpected.
partner already at that time, or was that before she became your partner?
No, she was my wife already. Yeah, we've been married more than 15 years now.
Oh, wait. I need to. This is.
Mm, 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 mm.
I can just
Yeah,
start it. I can't stop it. So it's a long clap.
yeah,
But at
it's a
the
long
same time,
applause.
15 years is a long time. So I think it's deserving
Yeah,
as
she's
well.
probably gonna come up and correct me that it's gonna be 18 or something, but sure, like we are nearing the 20-year mark pretty soon. And so basically that was not only just curiosity part, but I had to do it. So I had to make myself uncomfortable and do that.
Mhm.
But on the regular, what drives me is I like to be in action. I like to be curious. And once I get comfortable with anything new, I want to keep experimenting on it and see the results. So, for example, whatever the opportunity there, like a few things like some of the tools I'll mention here is circa 2007 8. I learned about personal Kanban. I was following Jim and Tony Ann, who wrote the book about that, and one of my community friends at that time that I was volunteering with, we I heard him share how personal Kanban works with him or helps him. So I'm like, okay, that's so I learned about it, implemented it multiple times in my things, and since then I have shared how with many people over the last 2 decades how to use personal Kanban. Some love it, some don't love it, and when you hear people about how they have succeeded and they come back, so it's that part that that validates that okay, we are doing something right, kind of thing. So like learning a lean
Mm.
coffee, in a conference, that was awesome. So I got comfortable about it. I went to multiple conferences, learned about it, experienced about it, and I saw how amazing that was. Right, I got curious about it, and I saw the value of that. So I'm like, yeah, this is the thing. Okay, this is probably one of the next things. So once you experience the value, my simple part is I want to share that value, and that is what generally drives me.
I really like that part because it's well, you do mention two people that are close to my heart as well, and that I've learned a lot from. You well, because I don't know if you know, but Lean Coffee, I got to know it also from Jim.
Yeah,
That made that popular. I don't even know if he came up with it, but definitely made it popular around the world. I think he actually invented it, but I'm not 100% sure.
yeah,
Should check
you're
it.
correct. Jim Benson and Jim Highsmith. Uh,
Yeah,
they,
and so yeah, that's definitely again, yeah. Some people are like, yeah, they invent one big methodology or whatever, and Jim is someone who I remember him telling me, oh, I think 15 years ago or something like that. I don't want to become the personal Kanban person. I want to have much more things. And he immediately after publishing personal Kanban started writing the next book and the next book because he didn't want to be just that kind of
just that
guy.
guy. Yep,
And yeah, so he's yeah. At the same time, he has so much creativity, so much other things that he keeps inventing other kind of stuff. And a little bit like what you said, you see something, you want to do something, you want to improve something, and that's a little bit that I assume how we invented lean coffee is like, okay, we want better kind of ways of dealing with community events. We don't want to do everything planning up front. How do we deal with it? And blah blah blah. Again, I'm just inventing, or I'm just reimagining how we invented it. But I can definitely see the need that was there at some point, and that's also how it quickly took the world. In the sense that people realized, hey, this is actually a much better way to do an evening event and learn from everyone who's around, not just one speaker. And that's how things got moving.
absolutely. Yep.
And yeah, I like how you link that to a drive because that's again that learning aspect. That's again these other things. So thanks for sharing. And on top of it, well, I think the nice example of learning something to do that together with your partner, it's also very nice.
Yeah,
It's a nice sub part of the story, which actually is maybe not just sub, but the main story. It's yeah, I think it explains a lot on how you do stuff and why you do stuff. It's not just the learning I hear, but it's also the community part of being with someone. In this case, your partner. But when you talked about other stuff earlier in our conversation, I think a lot of what you do there is then also to support other people, and it's also a community thing, I would say.
exactly.
Let's move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement so far? And I actually want to go to the question before the question, or the question beyond that. Is it easy for you as a person to brag? Because basically, this is your moment to brag. So Is it easy for a person like you to brag and say, "Hey, this is my biggest"?
I would consider myself no. Um, yeah, from myself, it isn't. That's probably why people don't know me much about that part. So I don't just generally do that. I like to probably fly under the radar if possible, but I like to be in the action. Uh,
Mm.
in the action part. So as I mentioned, um,
And
what
so
if
then
again?
when I ask you to take that stage and to say, "Hey, this is what I think I'm really is my biggest achievement," is that then easy to come up with something?
Yeah, that it was difficult. Like one of the simple answers is I've been having an eye on your work, and I know the kind of people you have interviewed. So me just being here, I would consider like a kind of a medal on.
Mm.
I feel honored that I'm here, and um, as you were mentioning in the just the previous conversation, I've been a community guy. Okay, I've the biggest part that I'm proud of is my contributions to the local global community. I volunteered a lot. Um, uh, as I said, I got my hands dirty, got a lot of things. Anywhere there was a problem to be solved, I jumped in. Did things again, not to name the institutes, but various organizations. I've had my hand in multiple organizations, multiple stuff, and just simply to summarize it, basically being in the community and working with a lot of um, leaders, thought leaders, um, even regular volunteers who then look up to you somehow um, for all the things that you've contributed and stuff. So um, one of the fruition of some of that was 2012. The Agile Community of Practice actually nominated me for an individual contribution award at the PMI Awards. That is
Mhm.
again didn't win it, but just knowing that all the people that are involved, how they work to actually even put together my case for that part and representing like at that time I think PMI Agile Community of Practice was one of the largest communities out of 32 community of practices. So um, I've had the chance to shake hands, work side by side in volunteering with a lot of amazing leaders. um, they were seeing them say good things about your work, and even then nominating that, I consider that was basically uh, one of my biggest achievements so far.
It's yeah, and I understand that part because it's not just achieving something, but it's really your community, your peers that actually say, "Hey, you know what? What you're doing there in our group of people, that is valuable to all of us." And so and and yeah, I think I can definitely understand that the winning is then maybe not even that important. Just knowing that people around you say, "Hey, we value you for what you do," is kind of important.
Yes,
And I
that
think,
the yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, that there are some even there are very yeah, you're right, that's right, like some amazing leader just saying that to you in person. Funny anecdote is like one of my very good friends and me and my wife, we were having a conversation, and somehow again this is during the tenure of the volunteering, and something came up like you're being an agile coach, and I'm like, no, I don't consider myself an agile coach. So he just stopped there. He did one thing. He is like, here's a napkin, here's a pen, and write down 10 times on this napkin, I'm an agile coach. So he was like, you need, again, bringing in the imposter
Mm.
syndrome or things like that. You're the one who's, so I'm fortunate enough to have basically worked with a lot of great people.
Yeah, especially if I consider, because if I remember correctly, at some point you were even volunteering, I think, years and years ago on LinkedIn with on community groups about agile. So it's again, it shows that you were already active in lots of that stuff at
Wow,
the
that's
moment.
interesting.
That yeah. So many people we. It's interesting that when I started out at some point I thought, okay, this is, yeah, this is already going on for a long time. Is that still, and now we hear like many years later, and then you see that again, that we're still making a dent in the world, and even if you just do it for a year or 2 years, we make links between other people. We think about stuff, and like you say, don't always see ourselves in that role and making that connection. But I link it back to also the your uncle that had an influence on you. He probably doesn't know that you went into IT because of him. He might know, but he might not realize how much you were part of that, or he was part of your decision.
Yep.
Just like you don't know how much influence you had, and maybe liking a message, or replying to a message or whatever, helping people out. And I think I try to, well, it's not why I started this whole series, but it's by doing this series that I realized I should tell much more the people around me, like, hey, wait a minute, you had a big influence on me. Like just in the pre-talk, the fact that I shared with you that this was actually started because of my friend Olaf Lewitz, or our joint friend Olaf Lewitz, who actually, yeah, and wrote about me. That actually is yeah, he knows that triggered my blog post, but I'm not sure if he realizes that this has been triggered because of that as well. So again, we should really tell our friends and family and whoever around us much more, like, you had that big influence on, and
Absolutely.
that helps us sometimes to realize our biggest achievement. um, and I really like that you bring this kind of, because sometimes people think that the big achievement should be about, I don't know, making a lots of money, or winning, I don't know, the Nobel Prize. But sometimes it could be the small things, and in this case, I think doing community work is probably more to the big thing than the small thing, because it has so much influence on people, and we don't always realize. So thanks for thinking about that and seeing that as an achievement. I think it's also a nice example for many different people about, hey, what is it that I'm, where is that dent?
It was pretty obvious to me. I mean, I was being selfish at that point. Like I wanted to learn from people, so that I was like, hey, again, at times I didn't even know what I was getting into. I've actually managed, as you mentioned, the LinkedIn groups, right? So if you go to the Scrum Alliance LinkedIn group and see the description template, that is the one that I designed. It's still there.
Well, that's it's a very nice example. Thanks for sharing, because indeed sometimes it's a little bit like you do that, and maybe you did it in a few minutes, maybe it took hours. It doesn't really matter. It's still there. What, 10 years later, and somehow it brings value to people, and that's it. And then it doesn't need to be, yeah, anything else. And that's I think it's really good that and I want to go a little bit back, because you said something really interesting when I asked you about, okay, how easy it is to you to brag. That it's not easy, but at the same time it was rather clear to you what your biggest achievement was. So apparently, figuring out, okay, that community thing, that is the biggest thing. I think I just heard you say it popped up really quick in your mind. Is that correct?
Well, I tried to spend some time on this one. Yeah, because I think that's um, most of my life has been volunteering, professional volunteering. So
Mm.
it wasn't that difficult, because one of the reason I've been around, why even I'm here and I'm associated with the word agile, is through my community work. So definitely it wasn't that difficult, because and yeah, I gave it a more thought of what else I could think of. But it just brought back all those great memories of. I, of course, took a lot of time away from family, but at the same time, met a lot of people around the world. Endless hours, evenings, nights, trying to figure tools, people's culture, shepherding, as they call cats. But yeah, so there's a lot of blood and sweat, I would call it, went into that, and it just makes me feel good about that part.
Mm. And you said, well, you took away time for because you were talking about work-life balance in the beginning. Yes, it definitely took time off of your family. I think there's no way to deny that. And at the same time, it creates a larger family where you learn stuff that probably has influence again on the other side as well. So
Yeah. Oh
it's
yeah.
again that influence is not on. And we kind of run into something or similar kind of way about personal agility. If we talk about family, then there is definitely, yeah, there is also a personal part in that. So what is a personal agility tip that you want?
It's very simple answer. The two things that I've learned and have been taking and cross pollinating across organizations, groups, friends, personal Kanban, and lean coffee. Those are
Mm,
the things that I, not only me, but my wife and I, and actually, you probably haven't seen it, but Jim and Tony were kind enough to actually feature us on their website. So we are one of their personal Kanban case studies on there.
mm,
Um, so since those two tools have made a huge impact on my life, and I like to uh, cross pollinate that whenever I meet with people. So neighborhood walks or talk at colleagues stuff. Um, I like to share with people how to do that stuff.
Wow, it's no, and indeed, I know I'll definitely link to the website from Jim and Sonyan, and I will link to, or I will link, and I will link the video or to the article talking about both of you, because I like it as, yeah, as a nice example because it's if you talk about doing it together with your partner, that brings a different kind of dimension. How did you come to propose that? How did that work? Because I know many people, for example, also for me, if I would propose things from work to my partner, there is always an initial reaction like, "Oh, work tools. No. This is our family." So, and indeed, we do have, or for a very long time, we did have a whiteboard in our kitchen. But I still remember the the confusion was not the right word. The look when I proposed it at home to say, let's use a whiteboard in our kitchen, and she was immediately agreeing, and I was like, oh damn it! I wish I proposed this earlier, because I was somehow blocking myself from proposing something as useful as and it was very yeah, it was very helpful for. So tell me a little bit, how does that work to start using some of these tools at home?
So that video that you have with Jim has the story, and we all have an actually presentation. But the simple part is, the easy part was, we both are in IT. So my wife
Mm,
is Meghana. She's in product management. She comes from also a developer background and stuff. And at a point in time, there was a life-changing event, and mm, that's where during her recovery, I helped her with a personal Kanban board, because she wasn't able to move around much, and she would get frustrated that she's not doing anything much at home. But then I started to, ask her questions. Okay, show me, what did you do today? Okay, and,
mm,
and she would be like, okay, I watered the plants, I paid this bill, I did that, something. So I started to show her the work she was doing. Then we moved from showing to planning. these even small tasks. And basically, that's the power of personal Kanban. And that's, she had heard about it from me. She knew I was using it in my own work and stuff. But when she saw how that was transformational for her, and that's where um, we became an actual personal Kanban family.
Wow, that's yeah. I'm definitely will link to the full version of this story, and of course, it might indeed a little bit been easier having a partner who's in IT and who can work with that. But at the same time, I also know many people in IT when we talk about the first version of personal Kanban using stickies and things like that. People like, no, I'm in IT. I don't want post-its. I don't
Yep.
want paper. Give me an electronic tool. Like,
Yep.
it's that for a lot of people in IT, and I make a joke out of it. I know before I get all these comments, but yeah, for a lot of people in IT, it's like if there is no computer involved, it can be really serious. And I think I hope 20 years down the path of agile that we've learned that there is actually advantage in both sides. But sometimes it's interesting to see some of that first reaction.
Yeah.
But I think what I hear from you, it was really about, okay, being blocked and then kind of looking at you like, probably you were doing some of that stuff, and she's like, hey, maybe some of the things that you're doing with teams might help you as well. So let's see
Yeah.
how.
It was actually basically taking this part, like, hey, this is something I am going to do and move it to done. And that
Mhm.
connection and that feeling, all of that, that chemistry cannot be, or science cannot be explained in scratching off stuff, or just doing digital movement of stuff. So
I recognize. I think many of us, even if you don't use personal Kanban or don't know it, just the idea of, well, just a to-do list and at the end being able to check off. I know people, friends of mine that have nothing to do with IT would just tell me like, if I done something and it's not on my to-do list, I will put it on so I can just scrap it off and say, I've done it. And I've been guilty of doing something and it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's not yet. So let's create a post-it and let's put it to done. Which is kind of silly if it's an extra post-it because that's not so good for the environment. But it's so tempting because it really gives that feeling. Yes, I've done something.
exactly.
Um, and somehow some of these last minute things might actually be the most important. Might be tempting to add other stuff because we're procrastinating, but in many cases, it's actually something that might be the most important thing, and that we sometimes forget, or because it's a higher priority.
Yep.
But thanks for sharing because I think with personal agility, when I ask about it can go all over the place, and you have a nice story of how you could help out your partner. It links us back again to, okay, where are we linked? What is work-life balance? And if you can do some stuff together with your partner or help your partner, it's always that extra level that makes it better. Let's move to that next question about remote work. And I think, well, let's start with that question before the question. A lot of us, we started with remote work during COVID. Did you do already some remote work before? And when did you start working with remote
Yeah, so I was partially doing a little bit of remote work. So I was with low code platform company, and we had an office, as we call it, in our suburb, like 15, 20 miles from my place. And Atlanta traffic is notorious, right? So I would get stuck in traffic a lot. And I would basically spend sometimes 1.5 to 2 hours in traffic part. So I was thankful enough that the company was like, you can do hybrid a little bit, so not a problem. So that's where I got a little. So I planned some of my days that when I needed to be on the calls with the clients and stuff, be at home. So I had gotten a little bit of, kind of a hybrid schedule, I would say. But then COVID came, and 2019 yeah, early 2020. Yeah, not 20, early 2020 is when we actually basically shut down the office and all that part. So that was when we went fully remote, and I've been working fully remote since then.
It's and so that's thanks already for sharing, because it shows that you had some experience already a little bit before many of us, I would say. And what is there a tip to share? Is there anything that you've learned that you can really say like, okay, this is something that is good for people to know and to or to experiment?
Yeah, and my experience has been like, yeah, the good part about that has it has given me a lot of time back. Okay, so all the time I was spending in commuting and things like that, I had, and I was, I can spend with time, my family. If we have a dog, take her to walk and all that stuff. So it definitely helps me with all that part on the good side. Um, of course, the bad side, as you all know, is one is you get the Zoom burnout and whatever that is, uh, trying to get communication and understanding everybody on, the messages and all those chats is not that great. So maybe there are too many unnecessary meetings that happen. Um, but what I've also found is, and, and I've moved between some of the different roles that with the world opening up, it's great that we are able to do our work remotely. But if there is a chance that you get to be with people, an example, I'm into project management and engagement management kind of thing. So trying to go to the client side or trying to go to the people where they're working to understand their environment so that we can properly design the UX, UI, or that kind of things. So making those specific trips to be in person, they are valuable. So I, whenever I engage with clients on the professional side, I definitely try to make sure I go and shake hands. Basically have some FaceTime if possible with them. And on the personal level, I stay connected with the people in the Atlanta area, all the friends in the volunteering space, and we meet at a regular cadence at least. Sometimes somebody say that, hey, we are gonna do something new, let's meet up. So being a part of some of those meetup groups and going and seeing people in person, uh, it just takes you that mental fatigue or boring part that you have been to, just away from that.
Mhm. That's I think it's an important way of looking at it, and an important part to think about. I think, yeah, like you said, the fatigues that we all have, it's there's many different ways of looking at that and many different ways to think about that. And but I think we have similar kind of fatigues for like a little bit what you said earlier on the traffic, because if you have to be, I've been in with clients that are 2 hours drive to get there one way, and so then I have to get back, so it's 4 hours, so that's
Yeah,
basically half a day. So if I
exactly.
spend 8 hours there, and of course I'm not leaving exactly at the right moment, I'm also have a break in and a lunch break, so now all of a sudden I'm 30 hours away 13 hours away from my family, and so by the time I'm home, I'm exactly actually exhausted. So there is a fatigue at that level as well. And I think what I'm hearing is you need to look a little bit at that balance, and like when you're there, and it's very well, I really like the fact that you say, well, we just handshake, and it's like it's normal. At the same time, how do we handshake remotely? Do we take the time to do it?
Correct.
And so let's make time for these kind of things. So thanks for sharing that, because I think it is again an important part. And I think the fact that we're most of us were only doing it like 3 4 years, my first time that I was working remote was back in 2005 when everybody was saying it's not possible. And
Hmm.
I've learned a lot of things, and I definitely made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. But now I gradually learn to see, like, oh, wait a minute, that there's actually things that we learned along the way that we can talk to people like, hey, let's take a while, and how do you do it up front in meetings and have a small chat before and whatever. What's that digital handshake? I think
Correct.
important kind of things to talk about. Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Let's move to that next question. What is a book that you want to talk about? Is there, I think you have a few that you wanted to talk about
Yeah,
already.
the recent one that I just, I'm nearly finishing, and towards in the last part is the This Is Lean. That is one of the latest books I am on, and the one before.
Wait.
Yeah,
Let's go for This Is Lean, and let me bring it up. Somehow I lost my mouse, but this is
that yes.
Lean. So just before you continue with the next book, why is that a good book that I should read or that my viewers?
So I'm personally on a journey that about into Kanban world, and I've been doing some as you call it certifications and that part, and this book I've actually on social media or somewhere either on Twitter or LinkedIn somehow I found somebody recommending this one. So again, got me curious that what is this about, and when I actually took the book in hand, what's great about this book is it basically uses our simple day-to-day examples to help understand the concepts and telling what efficiency paradox is and actually what you can try to do about it. It talks about a lot of concepts, and things like little lots law and stuff like that. Not to go too much in detail on those technicalities, but the authors have used a simple language. Um, I take a little bit of time to read books, so it's not too thick. It's it's you probably, if you are one of the voracious readers, it can simply be a day or two in which you can. Some people can definitely finish it in less than 3 days or something like that.
Mm.
So it's a good quick read with decent diagrams, and it just is it gets and distills down the concept really nicely.
Thanks for bringing that up. Unfortunately, I just had a problem with my video. I think I fixed it, but there might
Yes,
be. I hope
a
it
little bit of yeah. You're
stays
back.
fixed for yeah. I yeah. It's kind of hot in my office, and I think I figured out why sometimes it breaks. But I'm kind of surprised because I haven't used the camera in for a full day, so it's kind of surprised that it breaks down already after about an hour.
Okay.
So I hope it doesn't happen that quickly again. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that it might. But anyway, thanks for talking about that book and sharing how that yeah how well how you learn some of these concepts. I think many people, well, even if you like to read a lot of books, having a book that is easy to read and that's quick to read is always nice. I am Yeah, I think I'm convinced that an author should do the work and not me as a reader. So the better the author has done the work, the easier it is to read. And it's not always and I think it's Alistair Cockburn who once said to me is that most books are like uh, you only need the first third of the book, and the second and the third third are actually not needed because it's too thick for sometimes the ego of the author, sometimes it's the publisher that wants to be add much more to that, and for many books it should be just a smaller part, which is the actual interesting part. The problem is we don't always know which third you need to read. So sometimes you need to
Correct.
read the whole book to understand which is the interesting part, or at least which is the part that interests me, because it might be different for you and for me. But having a book that I can read very fast and at the same time learn a lot is definitely interesting. So you had a second book I remember that you wanted to start. What was that second?
That's this one by, I don't know,
Yes. And it's
Actionable
sometimes
Agile.
hard
Yeah.
to talk about actionable agile metrics for predictability.
Yep.
Tell us a little more. What do you want people to know about this book?
Well, again, as I mentioned, I wanted, I'm getting into a little more about learning more Kanban piece, the value of flow and stuff. And what I think this should be a textbook. This should be a textbook in either schools and stuff like that, because um, the way Daniel actually shows what are the different ways you can actually visualize your work. And he also
Mm,
have his actually this not only work but the how to make sense of that, all the data that you have from your work. So basically getting in what we call the back office piece and trying to synthesize that information. Okay. um, that all is just mind blowing. Maybe people who have had a statistical background and other things, it will be pretty easy for them to know stuff. Um, but my takeaway from that was, one, I learned a lot of different visualizations
mhm,
about the data that I could slice and dice the data into. Is it a scatter plot? Is it a histogram? Why is this better? Why is this not better? What should we look into? And while learning about all those, he also makes sure that you kind of understand the same similar concepts that we talked about in the this is lean part, like the concepts about flow and things like that, which are basis of Kanban, right? So he distills that information, makes many things pretty clear, and goes in depth on some of these, and then actually shows some examples in there about from his work in the field, and also how you can utilize his free tool to actually simply uh, take it to your benefit. And as I said to you, that I like to get hands on. So after this is kind of the second reread I'm having about the book. um,
mm,
so in some of my past engagements, I went in, downloaded the data, and fed it into that tool, and I was able to see, like, okay, great. I was able to make sense of what's happening, and then basically utilize that information to have conversation with my customers. I'll give you a specific example. Is like the customer was like, hey, we need to have these many user stories for our this next sprint, you know because if you tell me we have x number of sprints remaining and we need average for each of these, so she was basically doing like some kind of an arithmetic calculation about how many user stories we'll have, and then how much time we are going to need, and you know what is the budget that is going to be needed. And I was able to utilize basically some information from that, and one, kind of give her a little bit of help on an answer, but also help her understand about that the way she's thinking about that problem is not right.
mm.
That there are a lot of unknowns we don't know, that we have to still do a discovery. So I had to help her understand it should be the other way that you're thinking. If you have a hard budget, you tell us, what is your hard budget, and we can tell you what is it that we can deliver within that part. So having those kind of educated conversations with your client by utilizing some of this knowledge from the books and trying to show them is something that I enjoy.
Thanks for sharing, because it shows again yeah the links and the things that you learn, and I think that's the part. It's yeah. This is how what I like about asking people about books, because it's not so much about the book, but it's what you learn from a book and how you maybe even link it. And you kind of linked both books together in a way, on some of the way you talked about it. That makes it interesting. Maybe someone has read one of the books and not the other, and it might be think now, okay, that maybe that's another book, or the opposite. Like, I've read already one of these. For now, let's move in another direction. That also might be the case, of course, but I think that's what helps us thinking about, okay, different kind of ways and different kind of looks at books, because like you said earlier, there's many books and not everybody has a lot of time to read. So yeah, we need ways to, I would say, select books both in the positive and the negative version, I would say, what is way. And talking about different kind of things, you said earlier on you liked a lot of the questions that I had, but I've always been much most interesting in this kind of question. What is a question that I didn't ask you and yet you think, "Yeah, I should actually ask you"? What is something that you are destined to talk about, or that you think it's really an
Yeah, again, this was one of the things that I've spent a lot of time on. But since you're helping me with being here, and again, I don't know if people know what I know about me, but probably people can go on LinkedIn and see what kind of volunteer work that I've doing and all that part. But when I what I wanted to share here is the question could have been that what are my other achievements? Like, means what contributions actually I have done so far in the community. Um, and what I wanted to share there was, apart from actually being um, grounds on the grounds and helping build many of these volunteer organizations things. One of the ways I started to learn was, the very first thing I did was, when I got my PMP. Again, as I said, I had raised my hand for a volunteer opportunity. At that time, I was fortunate enough. So this is circa 2008, 9. Uh, I was picked and I was able to contribute to the fifth version of PMBOK guide, scope management chapter. So that was
wow.
my one of the very first thing. So again, it came in a right way because I had just done the exam, and then I was able to again apply that knowledge, validate, and kind of give back to the community. So that was one good thing. And then similarly, by just raising hands here and there, I was able to get in touch with a lot of people. So um, I was able to, during that similar period of time between 2008 to 2011ish, I was able to be a reviewer, a part of reviewer for a couple of books like um, Essential Scrum is one of the important books by Ken Rubin. So I have seen that book evolve from its earlier version to when it went to final one. How so I was lucky enough again to have been given a chance on that one. The next one was another book called Scrum in Action. So I was one of the lead reviewers on that book. I've interacted with Andrew Farm pretty well in that, a lot of time there. And then I met somebody at one of the conferences, and then was able to help with that book called Closing the Me You Gap with Ricky Gray. So these are a few of the books where I was able to actually uh, just do a little bit of you know part there in reviewing, providing my feedback, and that part. And similarly, as I came around in the community, one of the interesting that's exactly where I think it happened. So when we talk about our mutual friend Olaf, so Olaf, me, and some of our friends, we met in an agile coach camp somewhere in, if I'm not wrong, this was in Columbus. And that's where some of the leaders and one of our very good friends, she's not with us anymore unfortunately, but she was organizing conference, um, San Francisco Agile 2012. So we connected, and I was actually a co-organizer with many of other amazing leaders in the space. And that was a wonderful conference early on in 2012. I couldn't go, unfortunately, but it's still talked about, and many people have great memories about that conference. So just doing remote work in that space, helping organize conferences, doing book reviews, and all that kind of stuff was something that, if anybody wants to know a little bit about me, that's something that I would like them to know.
That's that's a wonderful answer again, and I think it's nice because it closed the loop on a lot of things that we have been talking about in here. So it's linking a lot of these different. Thanks for and the question and the answer. Um, I want to end up with the last big question about who do you think I should invite next? And I think you have well quite a few people that you wanted to talk about. So let's bring it on. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I have. I'm the top of my mind. As I said, came up with four names. Couple of them are local, and a couple of them n- not local to me in Atlanta. But the first name that kind of think of is Paul Elia. I don't know if you have already had him, but Paul is
I didn't
uh,
have him, and I think that's Paul, if I'm not mistaken.
that is correct. Yes. So
It's
Paul and
always
I.
interesting because I didn't check the pictures up front, so it's always a little bit so well, for some big names, it's very easy, but yeah, adding pictures from people across the globe is sometimes a little bit yeah, risky. But go ahead, talk about Paul.
Paul is very active in local community. He has actually been he's known for contributing to a lot of stuff. He's an enterprise agile coach and uh, the Agile Uprising podcast. He used to help with that part and stuff like that. And the greatest latest thing about that is he recently contacted a few senior agile people in Atlanta, and
Mhm.
we are basically starting something together. So it's literally called Let's Start Something Together, is the website. And what we are doing is he's bringing the people in the local community together to see what is it that we can do. I mean, is agile still relevant? What are we going to do? So we're basically meeting in October for our one of the in-person big events and happy hours, and then we'll go from there. So he's heading that one. So that's why Paul, that's the name came up.
It's interesting that you say about let's start it together, or let's yeah, because especially what you said about what's the current value of agile. In that question that I asked you about, okay, what's the question that you want to come up with? A lot of people. And so if I talk about the book version that I said before, uh, these kind of answers went all over the place. But in the video version, a lot of people are talking about what's the future of agile. Is agile still valuable? What is it? And so it feels like the whole, I don't know, industry, the whole atmosphere is like, where are we? Because of course we're 20 years down the path. It started all in 2001. So well, the manifesto, it's actually started a lot earlier. So a lot of people are like, where are we? Are we now grown up? Are we how is that? Is that an adult now? Is that does that mean that it's still valuable? Or is it not valuable anymore?
End of life.
Um,
Yeah.
it's but I think there's multiple kind of opinions. So I think it was going to be a really interesting having many people talk about and just think about it and how what will it bring that future. So definitely something that might be interesting for people. Uh, Unfortunately, the recording that I'm doing, we're doing it like I said on 11 September. Um, it might be published after the moment that you've been with everybody together. So that might be a little bit hard for people to do, but at the same time, if I do, let's put a link to whatever has been discussed there, and it might be interesting.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
we can talk about later about adding show notes or links to the show notes. Okay, you said you had four names. Who's the next person you want?
Next person is Alex Kill. Very
And
interesting
if I'm
guy.
correctly, that's Alex, or at
Yep,
least
that's his
looks like
avatar.
him.
It's pretty
Unfortunately, I
close.
couldn't find a real picture of him. I think that it's probably still a lot of stolen from LinkedIn
Correct.
or somewhere similar where he's using that. Yeah, if people start using it as their own picture, put it online about them, that's what I
He
think.
likes to somehow keep to himself or something like that. But he's actually my wife's colleague, and he's also passionate about all these things like creating internal communities, running internal what is agile kind of things, and he's an accomplished quality related guy. He's always making fun of project management related stuff with me, but he's very um, active generally in at least wherever he's working and the nearby communities, so that the organization that he works. So that's the reason, it's like I wanted to make sure that somebody like me who's always been there, that's why I thought of Alex's name.
Thanks for bringing that up and bringing again, well, what you say, like more local people that might be maybe lesser known in the rest of the world, which is actually what I was looking, what I hope to always get, because it's, yeah, it's very tempting to have all these big names, and of course that will usually bring in lots of viewers on YouTube, but at the same time, it's like sometimes it's more interesting to see what are the people on the floor doing, and that might not be always the big names, but maybe this is where the new ideas come from.
Yep.
Really interested in that. Okay, and while my camera is getting off again, who's that fourth, the third person you want to bring up?
And then third and fourth, they are very related with respect to the Kanban world. So third is Colleen Johnson, and Colleen is basically a co-founder of Pro Kanban. She's
That's
on
her, right?
That's her. That is correct. Um, she's again. I saw her talk at one of the local meetups in Atlanta. Um, Her experience in enterprise Kanban and all that part has been amazing. And just the month before, we had done personal Kanban, talk, and then the next one was enterprise Kanban. She herself has a product and a company, and she's now running or basically she co-founded with Daniel Pro Kanban. So um, she's generally I've followed her work on LinkedIn, Twitter, and generally. Um, so she's great. As
Interesting.
for that.
And what's then that fourth person that is linked to Colleen?
He's also a part of Pro Kanban, and all of these people like so Pratik Singh and Daniel Vacanti, they host something called Drunken Agile podcast on YouTube. Um, so I'm as much as interested in the whiskeys that generally Pratik brings to the talk. He
And
sometimes That's him.
that's him, right?
That is him. He
I
does
didn't take
all.
a picture with him with whiskey. Sorry for that.
Yeah, so he's kind of. I think he's promised me to give some of his leftovers. I don't know if he did that or not, but someday we'll meet together. But um,
It's here on camera, so now he has to.
he has to. uh, he has an interesting take. So all about again Kanban flow and stuff. And again, we've never met in person, but have followed his work on his podcast with Daniel. Uh, his blog posts. One of his recent articles on LinkedIn has actually been making amazing reactions. Uh, and I will leave it at that. So when I get a chance, I'll send that link to you. But he's an accomplished leader, and one of the good great trainers. And he's, I think, the training management lead at Pro Kanban at this point.
Definitely an interesting person to talk to. So thanks for bringing these four people, four names. Of course, it explodes my list again if everybody brings four names. But at the same time, I like how you bring a mix of multiple people from multiple places. And yeah, like I said in the pre-talk, at this moment my list is near 500, and I
Wow.
probably will never have 500 people on the show because that's 10 years. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, we'll just do it in the order. I'll invite the people when this is scheduled, and then we'll see who will take what time to go on and take what. Schedule a talk at that moment. So, so thank you for your time. It's been again a wonderful conversation. And I want to ask or give you the opportunity if people want to connect with you, if they really say, okay, I really like that person, I want to connect, what would be a good way for them to connect?
Um, People can definitely get to my URL sameerbendre.com or find me on
I
Twitter
think
and LinkedIn.
that's the
That
URL,
is
I
correct.
think your website, and
Yep.
LinkedIn would then be this one, if I'm correct.
I don't think so. No, it's just the
Ah,
Sameer
the
Bendre.
wrong
Yeah,
one?
yeah,
Okay, but that's I need to. Okay, so definitely link a better link. But that's why I'm
yeah,
happy that I put the
yeah. It's just S
uh,
Bendre after the N. So yeah, it's
okay. We'll definitely put the real connection.
okay.
Uh,
And on Twitter, if they are too, but for Twitter is too personal. Like, means I post all kind of stuff around there, like what I'm feeling in the moment. So it comes with a disclaimer that follow at your own risk, kind of stuff.
the thing I think with Twitter is that it's yeah, how would I say it, is that Twitter these days it's kind of where are we, is that still valuable or not? it's
Yeah,
it's always a little bit thinking
correct.
on where are we. So that's yeah, that's a different kind of discussion, I would say. So that's yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a wonderful conversation. Yeah, like you said earlier on, really open and having lots of discussions that are really interesting. So thank you for your time.
Thank
Um,
you.
and well, like you said, or like we said, or at some points, I hope definitely that we can have some kind of conversations, that we can have some kind of discussions at some point, uh, and more in person, because it's always interesting to see, can we connect in person and not just
I will take an opportunity when I get a chance. I'll definitely be there. But again, I want to thank you for not only doing all this hard work. Your work has been influencing. I've been seeing you toil for, well, at least 10 years. I've known you from seeing your work from the last 10 years. So it's an honor being here. Really appreciate it.
well, I thank you for your kind words. It's I really, yeah, it's nice to have people that yeah, it makes me humble again, because thinking about, okay, 10 years, like yes, it's been a lot of years doing a lots of different kind of stuff, and it's nice to sometimes meet people that I didn't know knew about me already for a long time, and that's probably again the imposter syndrome speaking up at some point, which brings the whole conversation back to full circle, I would say.
Where we
Uh,
started.
but yeah, it's this is what is so nice about having this is why I like so much doing this, because for the people that don't realize it, we've never met in person. There's just a conversation of a few emails back and forth to say, okay, would you be interested in joining? and then both be really happy when it actually happens. And then here we are, an hour and a half later. Been a wonderful time.
Same here, Eve. Thank you so much and have a
It's,
wonderful evening.
well, the same to you. It's not yet evening, so now it's a little bit before 10 minutes, 12 minutes before 10. What's it on your side again?
It's 10 minutes to 10, 12 minutes to 4 p.m. my side.
So it's nearing the end of the day, depending on the. So thanks for your time. Talk
Thank
later.
you. Bye.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.